Diane Abbott has just delivered one of the most ruthless political ambushes Westminster has seen in years. And the casualty? Keir Starmer's credibility comprehensively shredded. Imagine the scene. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, rises in the Commons to argue for removing the right to a jury trial for certain offences. The justification is familiar. It would speed up the justice system, reduce delays, and finally give victims their day in court. On the surface, it sounds almost sensible. But that argument didn't survive what came next. Diane Abbott, now sitting as an independent after being unceremoniously stripped of the Labour whip, stood up and calmly reached back into the archives. She quoted a fierce defense of jury trials written in 1992, warning that limiting them creates a dangerous imbalance between the power of the state and the freedom of the individual. Strong words. Powerful words. And then the reveal. The author of that article wasn't some obscure civil liberties campaigner. It was a young human rights lawyer named Keir Starmer. The same Keir Starmer now presiding over a government proposing to do the very thing he once warned against. It was devastating. Absolute political brutality. As this parliamentary drama played out, murmurs behind the scenes grew louder. Starmer may not even last long enough to see many of his policies fully implemented. Even Labour Together, the think tank that helped engineer his rise to the leadership, is reportedly sounding out local parties about potential successes. That alone should set alarm bells ringing. Before we dive deeper into this Westminster bloodbath, a quick favor. If you enjoy sharp, no-nonsense political analysis like this, hit the like button and subscribe. More than 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, which is frankly wild. It costs nothing, but it helps the channel massively. Already subscribed? You're a legend. Right, let's get into it. Context matters here. Britain's court system is not just struggling, it's collapsing under the weight of its own backlog. We're talking about delays so extreme they border on the absurd. In parts of London, rape victims are being told their cases may not be heard until 2028 or 2029. Think about that. A serious crime committed today, and justice delayed for 4 or 5 years. That isn't a justice system. It's a vague promise of accountability at some point in the distant future. Defendants sit in remand for years. Victims remain trapped in limbo. Witness memories fade. Confidence in the system evaporates. Everyone agrees it's broken. Enter David Lammy with what he presents as a pragmatic fix. Expand the powers of magistrates' courts. Move certain offences out of Crown courts. Remove the automatic right to a jury trial in those cases. Magistrates' courts are faster, cheaper, and more efficient. Shift enough cases across, and the backlog shrinks. Problem solved. Except it isn't. Because this proposal strikes at one of the most fundamental principles of British justice. Trial by jury isn't an administrative detail. It's a cornerstone of the legal system. It exists so ordinary citizens, not just the state, decide guilt or innocence. It's a safeguard against abuse of power. A brake on authoritarian drift. Lammy, to be fair, delivers his argument smoothly. He invokes victims. He highlights how many offences, particularly those involving women, are already dealt with by magistrates. He frames himself as the realist tackling a crisis, while critics appear stuck defending tradition for tradition's sake. Politically, it's a polished performance. Then Abbott stands up. Diane Abbott is a unique figure in British politics. The first black woman elected to Parliament. A veteran of decades of ideological battles. A politician who has endured extraordinary levels of abuse. Having lost the Labour whip under Starmer's iron discipline, she now sits free of party constraints. No career ladder left to climb. No loyalty owed. Nothing to lose. That makes her dangerous. She begins calmly, acknowledging the crisis in the courts. She doesn't deny the backlog. She doesn't pretend victims aren't suffering. But then she flips Lammy's argument completely. The House, she says, should also be concerned about the women who will suffer miscarriages of justice if jury trials are removed. Instantly, the moral high ground shifts. And then comes the quote. She reads aloud a warning about the delicate balance between state power and individual freedom, and how jury trials are essential to maintaining it. The chamber listens. It sounds like textbook civil libertarian wisdom. Then the hammer falls. Those words, Abbott explains, were written by the current Prime Minister in 1992, in Socialist Lawyer magazine. They were true then. They remain true now. You could almost hear the air leave the room. This wasn't just a policy critique. It was an accusation of total abandonment of principle. Young Keir Starmer, the idealistic human rights lawyer, versus Prime Minister Starmer, overseeing the erosion of the very rights he once defended. The hypocrisy was glaring. Abbott presses further. How? She asks. Can ministers justify limiting jury trials when they know exactly which defendants will be harmed by such changes? It's a rhetorical question, but a lethal one. The implication is clear. This policy will disproportionately damage the vulnerable, and the government knows it. Lammy's response is revealing. He doesn't deny the tension. He doesn't claim Starmer was wrong in 1992. Instead, he leans on necessity. The backlog is crushing. Victims cannot wait years. In London, he repeats, rape cases listed for the end of the decade are simply unacceptable. He's not wrong. Those delays are indefensible. But here's the crucial point. Stripping away rights isn't the only solution. Courts could be properly funded. More judges could be appointed. Infrastructure could be expanded. Instead, Labour has chosen the cheaper, faster route, reducing protections rather than fixing the system. That's why Abbott's intervention lands so hard. She isn't denying reality. She's exposing the choice being made. Convenience over principle. Speed over rights. Zoom out. And this episode is just one symptom of a deeper crisis for Starmer. Rumors of instability aren't coming from opponents alone. They are emerging from inside Labour's own ecosystem. Labour together exploring successes this early is extraordinary. This government is barely months into a landslide majority, yet it already feels brittle. Starmer is managing to alienate almost everyone. The left despises him for purges and centrism. The center is uneasy about authoritarian instincts. Businesses fear tax hikes. Voters are realizing that change looks suspiciously like continuity with a different accent. The jury trial controversy encapsulates it all. Faced with a hard problem, Starmer has chosen the path that sacrifices liberty rather than the one requiring serious investment. The same pattern appears everywhere. Housing tinkered with, not built. The NHS reorganized, not funded. The cost of living crisis patched over, not solved. And voters are noticing. Poll numbers are sliding. Starmer's personal ratings are dire. MPs are restless. Discipline is enforced through punishment rather than persuasion. Angela Rayner is pushing back and winning. And now Diane Abbott has publicly dismantled the moral foundation of his legal reforms using his own words. This isn't just Westminster theatre. If a government is willing to weaken jury trials, one of the oldest protections in British law, what else becomes negotiable? Which other rights get trimmed when they become inconvenient? Young Keir Starmer understood why these safeguards exist. He understood that there is always a crisis, always a justification, always a temporary reason to erode freedom. That's precisely why these protections matter most when pressure is highest. And that is the charge hanging over this government now, not that it faces hard problems, but that it knows better and is choosing the easy way out anyway.